The stars had watched Earth for 200 years. In all that time, they heard nothing. No radio signals. No satellite transmissions. No signs of the species that once filled the galaxy with curious messages and eager greetings. Admiral Keth Valorian stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dawn, and looked at the blue planet on the main screen. His purple skin reflected the glow of 100 control panels around him. Behind him, officers of the Valori species worked in quiet efficiency. "Scans complete, Admiral," reported his second officer. "No electromagnetic activity. No orbital structures. No defense systems detected." Keth Valorian allowed himself a small smile. The Coalition had sent 400 ships to claim Earth. Now it seemed they had brought far too many for a dead world. "The humans destroyed themselves," he said, "just as the Talvori predicted they would. Their species was too violent, too emotional. It was only a matter of time." He thought about the reports from 2 centuries ago. Humans had joined the Galactic Coalition with such hope. They had shared their music, their art, their dreams of exploring the stars together with other species. Then came the silence. One day, Earth simply stopped talking. Ships sent to investigate never returned. Eventually, the Coalition declared the planet forbidden. But forbidden things always attract interest. And Earth sat in a valuable location, rich with resources perfect for colonization. "Send the landing parties," Admiral Valorian commanded. "Begin with the large peninsula in the eastern continent." Old records show a city called Sol once stood there. 300 transport ships broke formation and descended toward Earth's atmosphere. Each carried soldiers, scientists, and colonization equipment. The Valori would claim this world for the Coalition, and Admiral Valorian would become a hero. Far below, deep beneath the mountains of what was once called Korea, a light blinked in the darkness. Dr. Park Soo-min had waited her entire life for this moment. She sat in a command center buried 2 kilometers underground, surrounded by screens and sensors that most species believed impossible. Her fingers moved across her console with practiced speed. 400 ships in orbit, she said into her communicator. 300 descending. They are heading for Sol. The voice that answered was calm and steady. "Understood, Doctor." "Are they scanning?" "Yes, Captain. But they cannot see us. Our shielding is holding." On the other end of the communication, Captain Yoon Tae-ho nodded to himself. He stood in an even deeper facility, one that housed the true heart of Earth's defense. Around him, thousands of screens showed every ship in orbit, every soldier descending, every move the Coalition made. Tae-ho was not a tall man, but his presence filled any room he entered. His hair had turned gray early from the weight of his responsibility. For 30 years, he had commanded Earth's hidden military. For 30 years, he had trained, prepared, and waited. "They think we are dead," he said. "They think we destroyed ourselves," Dr. Park replied. "Their arrogance blinds them." Tae-ho watched the screens. The Coalition landing parties were entering the atmosphere now. They would see ruined cities, overgrown forests, and empty streets. They would find bones and abandoned buildings. They would find exactly what humanity wanted them to find. "How long until they land?" he asked. 17 minutes. Tae-ho closed his eyes. He thought about his grandmother, who had survived the Great Plague 200 years ago. She had told him stories of the time before the silence. She had described how humans trusted the galaxy, how they believed other species would treat them fairly. Then the Talvori came with their gifts and their smiles. They shared technology that failed at critical moments. They brought a disease that killed 2 billion people before doctors found a cure. And when humanity begged for help, the Talvori laughed. The galaxy had taught humanity a lesson. Trust no one. Prepare for everything. And when your enemy thinks you are weak, Let them believe it until the perfect moment. "Captain," Dr. Park said, "should I send the warning?" Tejo opened his eyes. "Not yet. Let them land. Let them walk our streets and touch our soil. Let them feel safe." In orbit, Admiral Valorian watched his landing parties descend through thick clouds. He had expected some resistance, perhaps automated defenses left behind by a dead civilization. Instead, he found nothing but silence. "The humans really are gone," said his tactical officer. "Scans show plant life has overtaken most of their cities. Animals roam freely. There are no heat signatures of large populations anywhere." "A waste," Admiral Valorian said, though he did not feel sad. They could have been useful servants. Their hands were good for building, their minds acceptable for simple tasks. He turned to his communications officer. "Inform the coalition. Earth is ours. The human threat is officially ended." The message traveled across the galaxy at faster than light speed. Within hours, every species would know that Earth had fallen without a single shot fired. But deep underground, Captain Yoon Tai-ho watched the coalition soldiers step onto Korean soil for the first time. They walked through the empty streets of what appeared to be abandoned Seoul. They kicked through rubble and laughed at human artifacts. "They are all on the ground now," Dr. Park reported. 5,000 soldiers in Seoul alone. More landing in other regions. Tejo stood up from his command chair. Around him, officers waited in perfect silence. They had trained for this moment since birth. Their parents had trained before them, and their grandparents before that. 7 generations of preparation came down to this single decision. "Wake the sleepers," Captain Yoon Tae-ho commanded. Across Earth, in hidden bunkers beneath every continent, lights began to turn on. Machines that had waited in darkness for 200 years started to hum. Soldiers who had lived their lives in secret opened their eyes and reached for their weapons. The silence was about to end. In orbit, Admiral Valorian felt a strange chill run down his spine. He looked at the peaceful blue planet below and, for just a moment, wondered if he had made a terrible mistake. The moment passed. He pushed the feeling aside and smiled at his crew. He would never smile again. Commander Reth Salavis had conquered 12 worlds in his military career. He had fought through jungles, deserts, and frozen wastelands. He had faced species with claws, fangs, and poison. Nothing had ever frightened him, but as he walked through the empty streets of Seoul, something felt wrong. "The buildings are too clean," he said to his lieutenant. "If this city was abandoned 200 years ago, there should be more decay." His lieutenant, a young Valori with bright purple scales, shrugged. "Perhaps their construction was better than we expected." Reth Salavis stopped walking. He looked at a building covered in vines and moss. The windows were dark. The doors hung open. Everything looked abandoned. But the structure itself stood strong and straight, as if someone had been maintaining it in secret. "Spread out," he ordered his soldiers. "Search every building. I want answers." 5,000 coalition soldiers moved through the dead city. They found empty homes with furniture still in place. They found stores with goods still on shelves. They found schools with books still on desks. Everything waited in perfect silence, as if the humans had simply vanished one day and left everything behind. In orbit, Admiral Valorian received reports from across the planet. Landing parties in Europe found the same empty cities. Teams in the Americas discovered the same strange silence. Everywhere they looked, they found a world frozen in time. "This is wrong," muttered Valorian's tactical officer. "Species do not disappear like this. There should be bodies, or signs of war, or evidence of disease." The Tolvori report said they destroyed themselves with internal conflict. Admiral Valorian replied. "Perhaps they were very thorough." High above the clouds, hidden in a mountain base that no scanner could detect. Lieutenant Han Ji-won sat in the cockpit of her firecraft. She was small for a pilot, with quick eyes and quicker hands. The craft around her was unlike anything the Coalition had ever seen. Black as night, silent as death, invisible to all known sensors. "Control, this is Shadow One," she said into her helmet. "Ready for launch." Captain Yoon Tae-ho's voice filled her ears. "Shadow One, you are cleared. Remember your training. Strike fast, strike hard, and show them what humanity has become." Ji-won smiled. She had been born in these underground bases. She had learned to fly before she learned to read. Her entire life had been preparation for this moment. "With pleasure, Captain." The mountain opened. Not slowly, not with warning, but in one instant. A crack appeared in the rock face, and Jaewon's craft shot into the sky like a black arrow. She was not alone. Across Earth, mountains split open. Lakes drained as hidden doors revealed massive hangars beneath. Forests parted as launch platforms rose from underground. In seconds, 10,000 aircraft filled the skies of Earth. Commander Reth Solidus heard the sound first. A low hum that grew into a roar. He looked up and saw the sky turn black with shapes he did not recognize. "What is that?" his lieutenant asked, voice shaking. Before Reth Solidus could answer, his communicator exploded with panicked voices from across the city. Soldiers screaming about enemies appearing from nowhere. Officers reporting weapons that did not work against the strange black aircraft. Teams calling for help that would never come. In orbit, Admiral Valorian watched his sensor screens light up with thousands of new contacts. They had appeared from nowhere, as if the planet itself had given birth to an army. "Impossible," he whispered. "This is impossible." "Admiral," shouted his weapons officer, "3 cruisers have been destroyed. The enemy craft are too fast for our targeting systems." Lieutenant Han Ji-won flew through the Coalition fleet like a ghost. Her weapons cut through shields that should have been impenetrable. Her ship moved in ways that broke the laws of physics that the Coalition understood. Behind her, human pilots followed in perfect formation, each one a master of their craft. "Shadow flight, target the command ships," Ji-won ordered. "Leave the transports. We want them to see." Below, in the streets of Seoul, soldiers emerged from every building, every alley, every shadow. They wore black armor that bent light around them. They carried weapons that made no sound but struck with devastating power. Commander Reth Solidus found himself surrounded. His soldiers dropped their weapons as humans appeared from the very walls around them. There was nowhere to run. There was nowhere to hide. A human woman approached him. She wore a communications badge that marked her as an officer. "I am Specialist Beek Yuna," she said in perfect Coalition common. "You are now prisoners of the United Earth Defense Force." Reth Solidus stared at her. How? How is this possible?" "You were dead. Your species was extinct." Yuna smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "We were never dead, Commander. We were waiting." She raised her communicator and broadcast on all Coalition frequencies. Her voice reached every ship in orbit, every soldier on the ground, every ear that could hear. "This is Earth. You were not invited. Your presence here is an act of war. You have 1 hour to surrender or leave. There will be no second warning." In orbit, Admiral Valorian listened to the broadcast with growing horror. Around him, his officers reported disaster after disaster. 15 ships destroyed. Ground forces surrounded. Weapons ineffective against human technology. How did we not know? He demanded. How did they hide an entire military force for 200 years? No one could answer him. On the planet below, Captain Yoon Tae-ho watched the battle from his command center. Everything was going according to plan. The Coalition forces were shocked and confused. Their ground troops were captured without heavy casualties. Their fleet was being destroyed piece by piece. "Captain," Dr. Park Soo-min reported, "the enemy admiral is attempting to retreat." Taeho shook his head. "He cannot retreat. Not yet. He must see. He must understand." He gave an order, and the hidden defense platforms around Earth came to life. Massive weapons that had been buried in asteroids and hidden behind the moon activated for the first time. They formed a wall of fire that no ship could pass. Admiral Valorian found himself trapped. He could not advance. He could not retreat. He could only watch as human forces systematically destroyed his fleet. This was a trap, he said, finally understanding. The silence, the empty cities, the dead world. It was all a trap. He looked at the blue planet that had seemed so helpless just hours ago. What kind of species waits 200 years for revenge? On Earth, Specialist Beak Yuna heard his question to an intercepted transmission. She looked at Commander Reth Salavis and the thousands of captured soldiers around her. "The kind that remembers," she said softly. "The kind that never forgets." The battle continued through the night. By morning, 300 coalition ships had been destroyed or captured. Every soldier on the ground was a prisoner. And the galaxy had learned a terrible truth. Earth was not silent because humanity was dead. Earth was silent because humanity was hunting. Elder Cho Dongwu remembered the stories his great-grandmother had told him. She was just a child when the first alien ships appeared in the sky. The whole world had celebrated. Humanity was not alone. The universe was full of friends waiting to meet them. Now, Dongwu sat in a broadcast chamber deep underground, preparing to tell the galaxy what really happened. His wrinkled hands moved across the controls with practiced care. He was 112 years old, one of the last people alive who had heard the truth from someone who lived through it. "Are you ready, Elder?" asked Captain Yoon Tae-ho through the communicator. Dongwu nodded at the camera in front of him. "I have been ready for 60 years, Captain. It is time the universe knows our pain." In orbit, Admiral Valorian sat in his damaged command chair. Half his fleet was gone. His communications were being jammed. He could not call for help. He could only wait for whatever the humans planned to do next. Then his screens flickered. Every screen on every remaining coalition ship showed the same image. An old human man with white hair and kind eyes sat in front of them. "My name is Shou Dongwu," the man said in Coalition Common. "I am a keeper of history. I am here to tell you the truth about what happened to Earth." Admiral Valorian wanted to shut off the broadcast, but his controls did not respond. He was forced to watch. 208 years ago, Elder Cho continued, humanity joined the Galactic Coalition. We were young. We were hopeful. We believed that all species wanted peace and friendship. The screen showed old images. Humans shaking hands with aliens. Celebrations in the streets. Children waving at ships in the sky. The Talvori came to us as friends. They offered technology to improve our medicine. They offered systems to make our farms produce more food. They offered partnership and prosperity. Admiral Valorian felt his stomach tighten. The Talvori were founding members of the coalition. They sat on the highest councils. They had sent him on this very mission. "We trusted them," Elder Cho said, his voice growing heavy. "We installed their medical systems in every hospital. We used their farming technology on every continent. We opened our world to them completely." The images changed. Now they showed hospitals full of sick people, bodies in the streets, mass graves being dug in empty fields. The Tolvari technology was designed to fail. Their medical systems released a plague that our bodies could not fight. 2 billion humans died in 18 months. Admiral Valorian heard gasps from his officers. Some of them had families on Talvari worlds. Some of them had studied at Talvori schools. They had been taught that the Tal'Vari were the most civilized species in the galaxy. We begged for help, Elder Cho continued. We sent messages to every coalition species. We asked for medicine, for doctors, for anything. The Tal'Vari answered. They said the plague was our own fault. They said human weakness had caused it. They refused to help. On the screen, recordings from 2 centuries ago showed Tal'Vari ambassadors laughing at human diplomats. They mocked their dying population. They suggested that humanity's extinction would be better for the galaxy. When we finally created a cure ourselves, when the dying stopped, we knew the truth. We could never trust the galaxy again. So we made a choice. The images showed humans dismantling their satellite networks. Ships returning to Earth and being hidden underground. Cities being prepared to look abandoned. We went silent. We hid our people underground. We let the galaxy believe we were dead. And for 200 years, we prepared. We built weapons that no species could imagine. We trained our children and their children to be soldiers. We waited for the day when someone would come to claim our world. Elder Cho looked directly at the camera. His eyes, tired and old, burned with a fire that had never died. Today, the Tal'Vari sent you to take Earth. They told you we were extinct. They told you this world was empty and free for colonization. They lied. Admiral Valorian's hand shook. He thought about his orders, his mission briefings, his confidence when he left Coalition space. The Tal'Vari had planned everything. Check your records, Elder Cho said. Look at who proposed this mission. Look at who provided the intelligence. Look at who benefits from human destruction. Officers across the remaining fleet began accessing old files. They found Tal'Vari signatures on every document. Tal'Vari representatives had pushed for this invasion for decades. Tal'Vari advisors had insisted that Earth was safe to claim. We do not blame you, Admiral Valorian, Elder Cho said. You were used as we were used. But we will have justice. One way or another, the Tal'Vari will answer for what they did. The broadcast ended. Silence filled the Coalition flagship. Admiral Valorian turned to his communications officer. Get me Tal'Vari High Command, now. The officer worked his console, then looked up with fear in his eyes. Admiral, they are already transmitting. They are ordering all Tal'Vari ships in the fleet to open fire on any vessel that attempts surrender. Valorian's blood ran cold. He looked at his tactical display and saw 15 Tal'Vari ships in his remaining fleet. They were already moving into attack positions. They want to silence us, he realized. They want to destroy all witnesses. Below on Earth, General No Haijin watched the chaos unfold in the Coalition fleet. She was 94 years old, kept alive by human medicine that was centuries ahead of anything the galaxy possessed. She had been a young soldier during the plague. She had buried her parents, her siblings, and her first child. For nearly a century, she had designed Earth's defense strategy. Every weapon, every tactic, every plan had come from her mind. The Tal'Vari are turning on their own allies, reported Captain Taiho from beside her. Haijin nodded slowly. They have no choice. Their crimes are exposed. If any witness survives, their power in the Coalition will end. She pressed a button on her command console. Lieutenant Han, this is General No. New orders. Protect the non-Tal'Vari vessels. Let them see that humans protect even our enemies when they are in danger. In orbit, Lieutenant Han Ji-1 received the order with surprise. She had spent her life preparing to destroy Coalition ships. Now she was being asked to save them. But she understood. This was not just about revenge. This was about showing the galaxy who humans really were. All shadow flights, she commanded. New targets. Tal'Vari vessels only. Protect all other ships. Human fighters broke off their attacks and formed defensive positions around the surviving non-Talvori ships. They intercepted missiles meant for Valori cruisers. They destroyed attack craft heading for Allied transports. Admiral Valorian watched in amazement as the species he had come to conquer now protected him from his own allies. "Why?" he asked, though no one could hear him. "Why would they save us?" On Earth, Elder Cho Dongwu smiled sadly at his broadcast screens. He knew what the humans were doing. He knew why. "Because we remember what it felt like to beg for help and receive none," he said softly to himself. "We will not become the monsters that hurt us." The battle above Earth continued, but now the lines were different. Humans and coalition ships fought together against Talvori betrayers. The truth had changed everything, and somewhere in the deep black of space, a Talvori command station received word of the disaster. They had one final option, one weapon that could still destroy Earth and bury all evidence of their crimes. The order was given to prepare it for firing. The prisoner camp had been set up in what was once a park in Seoul. Trees that had grown wild for 2 centuries provided shade for thousands of captured soldiers. Coalition troops from a dozen species sat in groups, watched by human guards who never threatened them. Commander Rethsalvis had expected torture. He had expected interrogation, starvation, and cruelty. That was what happened to prisoners of war. That was what he had done to enemies he had captured on other worlds. Instead, a young human man approached him carrying a medical kit. "I am Medic Kong Jun Zizio," the man said. "You have injuries that need treatment. May I help you?" Rethsalvis stared at him. During the battle, a piece of falling debris had cut his arm deeply. Purple blood had dried on his scales. The wound throbbed with pain. "Why would you help me?" he asked. "I came to take your world. I would have killed your people." Junzio knelt beside him and opened his kit. "You are hurt. That is reason enough." He cleaned the wound with gentle hands. He applied medicine that stopped the pain almost immediately. He bandaged the arm with skill that showed years of practice. "Your medicine is very advanced," Rethsalvis said quietly. "We had 200 years to improve it," Junzio replied. "We had 2 billion reasons to make sure no one ever died from sickness again." Across the camp, other human medics treated other wounded prisoners. They asked nothing in return. They made no demands for information. They simply helped. Captain Shin Yunbai watched from the edge of the camp. She commanded the Special Forces unit that had captured most of these soldiers. Her hands had killed many enemies in the battle. Now those same hands held a cup of water that she brought to a wounded Valori officer. "Drink," she said. "You have lost blood. You need fluids." The officer took the cup with trembling hands. "I do not understand you humans. You fight like demons and care for us like family." Yunbai sat down beside him. "We know what it feels like to suffer alone. We would not wish that on anyone, not even our enemies." In orbit, the battle against the Talvori ships had ended. Human forces had destroyed 10 of the 15 Talvori vessels. The remaining 5 had surrendered when their crews mutinied against their captains. Fleet Commander Tithmor Vane of the Krethri species contacted Captain Yoon Tae-ho directly. His species had always been uncomfortable with Talvori influence in the coalition. Now he saw a chance to break free. "Captain Yoon," he said through the communication channel, "I wish to formally ally my ships with your forces. We were deceived. We do not wish to be enemies of humanity." Tae-ho studied the alien commander on his screen. Tithmor Vane was huge by human standards, covered in thick gray plates that served as natural armor. His eyes were small and deep-set, but they showed genuine regret. "Your species participated in the invasion," Tae-ho said carefully. "Why should I trust you?" Because I have information you need, Morvain replied. Information that could save your world. He transmitted the data package to Earth Command Center. Dr. Park Soo-min reviewed it, and her face went pale. Captain, she said, you need to see this. The data showed a Talvori weapon station hidden in a distant star system. It was a planet killer, a device capable of destroying worlds with a single shot. And it was aimed at Earth. They call it the Silence Maker, Morvain explained. It was built secretly over the past 50 years. Very few in the Coalition know it exists. The Talvori intended to use it only if conventional forces failed. How long until it can fire? Taeho asked. 6 hours. Maybe less. The weight of this news settled over the command center. They had won the battle for Earth, but the war was not over. General No-Hai-jin joined the conversation. Her old eyes studied the weapon's specifications with the sharp mind that had never aged. We cannot defend against this, she said flatly. Our shields, our weapons, nothing can stop a shot of this magnitude. Then we must destroy it before it fires, Taeho said. Dr. Park Soo-min began analyzing the data. Her fingers flew across her console as she searched for any weakness in the weapon's design. Here, she said finally, pointing at a section of the technical drawings. The power core. It uses a compressed star fragment as its energy source. That makes it incredibly powerful, but also unstable. What does that mean? General No asked. It means a small force could reach the core and destroy it from inside. The explosion would take out the entire station. Silence filled the room. Everyone understood what that meant. A mission to the core would be one way. Whoever went would not come back. Commander Reth Salavis appeared on the command screens. He had requested to speak with the human leaders after learning about the weapon threat. I know the station's layout, he said. I was stationed there for 3 years before this mission. I can guide your strike team to the core. Captain Taeho frowned. Why would you help us? You are our prisoner. Reth Salavis looked at the bandage on his arm. He thought about the medic who had treated him, the soldiers who had given him food, the captain who had brought him water. Because your people showed me mercy when I deserved none, he said. Because if the Talvori destroy Earth, they will erase the truth along with it. And because for the first time in my life, I want to do something right. General No studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded. We accept your help, Commander. Lieutenant Han Ji-won volunteered for the mission immediately. So did her entire squadron. In the end, 20 pilots were chosen. The best humanity had to offer. As Ji-won prepared her ship, Medic Kang Junseo approached her. Come back, he said simply. She smiled at him. I will try. No, promise me. Find a way. Ji-won looked at the young medic. They had grown up together in the underground bases. He had healed her wounds more times than she could count. She had protected him in training exercises and real battles alike. I promise, she said. I will find a way. The strike force launched an hour later. 20 human ships, joined by 12 Krethri vessels and Commander Reth Salavis as their guide. They jumped to faster than light speed and disappeared into the darkness of space. Behind them, Earth prepared for the worst. If the strike team failed, humanity would have only hours to live. Captain Yoon Taeho stood in his command center and watched the fleet vanish from his senses. He had sent his best soldiers to their almost certain deaths. May they find victory, he said quietly. Beside him, General No-Hai-jin placed a hand on his shoulder. They are human, she said. They will find a way. They always do. In the prisoner camp, captured soldiers watched the human ships leave. Many of them had begun to understand something that their leaders never told them. Humans were not weak. They were not violent savages. They were not failed experiments of evolution. They were survivors. They were fighters. And they protected even their enemies when mercy was needed. Perhaps some of them thought the galaxy had been wrong about humanity all along. The Silence Maker hung in space like a metal moon. Its surface bristled with weapons platforms and shield generators. Thousands of Talvari soldiers guarded it, ready to die for their mission. Lieutenant Han Ji-won studied the massive station from the cockpit of her fighter. Even at this distance, she could feel its power. One shot from this weapon would turn Earth into dust and memory. "Strike team, this is Shadow 1, she said into her communicator. "We have 4 hours until the weapon fires. Let's not waste time." Commander Reth Solidus transmitted from one of the Crethary ships. "There are 3 approaches to the core. All of them are heavily defended. I recommend we split into 3 groups and attack simultaneously." Fleet Commander Tith Morvain agreed. His deep voice rumbled through the communications channel. "My ships will take the northern approach. We will draw their heavy fire. My squadron will take the eastern approach," G1 added. "We are the fastest. We can break through their fighter screens. That leaves the western approach for the remaining human ships," Reth Solidus finished. "I will guide them directly to the core." The plan was desperate. The odds were terrible. But they had no other choice. "For Earth," G1 said. "For truth," Morvain added. "For redemption," Reth Solidus finished quietly. The attack began with fire and speed. 12 Crethary battleships crashed into the station's northern defenses like an armored wave. Their thick hulls absorbed punishment that would have destroyed lesser vessels. They drew hundreds of Talvari defenders away from the other approaches. G1 led her squadron through the eastern approach at speeds that should have been impossible. Her black fighters danced between defensive fire, too fast to track, too precise to stop. She lost 3 pilots in the first minute, 2 more in the second. But the survivors broke through. The Western group followed Reth Solidus's guidance through maintenance, tunnels, and service passages. They bypassed heavy defenses completely, sliding through the station's infrastructure like ghosts. "Core chamber ahead," Reth Solidus reported. "Heavy door. Requires physical detonation." G1's voice came through the communicator. "We are drawing the last offenders away from the core. You have maybe 5 minutes before they realize what you are doing." The Western group landed in a small hangar near the core. 10 human soldiers in black armor emerged, carrying weapons and explosives. Reth Solidus was with them, wearing captured Talvari armor that he had taken from a dead guard. "Follow me," he said. They moved through corridors that smelled of alien metal and recycled air. Twice they encountered Talvari guards. Twice the human soldiers eliminated them before they could raise an alarm. The core chamber door was massive, built to withstand direct assault from warships. But Dr. Park Soo-min had identified a weakness in its design. A small panel on the side controlled its locking mechanism. Sergeant Kim, the team leader, commanded the panel. A young soldier moved forward with electronic tools. Her hands worked quickly despite the pressure. Behind them, alarms began to sound. They had been discovered. "Hostiles incoming," reported a soldier watching their back. "Many of them." "Hold them off," the team leader ordered. "We need more time." Human soldiers formed a defensive line in the corridor. Talvari guards rushed toward them from both directions. The fighting was close and brutal. "Done!" Sergeant Kim shouted as the massive door began to open. The strike team pushed into the core chamber. Before them, a sphere of compressed stellar matter floated in a containment field. It pulsed with the power of a caged sun. This was the heart of the Silence Maker. This was what they had come to destroy. "Set charges around the containment generators," the team leader commanded. 60 seconds. Soldiers spread out, placing explosives with practiced speed. Reth Solidus helped, his hands trembling slightly as he worked. This was his redemption. This was how he would repay the mercy humans had shown him. Charges set, someone reported. Time to leave, the team leader said. But when they reached the door, they found it blocked. 100 Talvori soldiers stood in the corridor, weapons raised. There was no way out. "Well," said the team leader, "this is unfortunate." Lieutenant Han Ji-won's voice came through the communicator. "Western team, report. What is your status?" The team leader looked at the charges, then at the enemy soldiers, then at his own people. They all understood. "Shadow 1, this is Western team. Charges are set. Timer is at 40 seconds. We cannot extract." Silence on the channel. Then Ji-won's voice, thick with emotion. "Understood, Western team. It has been an honor." "The honor was ours, Lieutenant." "Finish the mission." Reth Salavis stepped forward. He faced the Talvori soldiers who had once been his allies. "I served the Coalition for 30 years, he said loudly. "I believed we were bringing order to the galaxy. But I was wrong. We were building tyranny. Today, I helped tear it down." The Talvori soldiers hesitated. They did not expect one of their own to speak against them. That hesitation was all the strike team needed. They charged. The explosion lit up space like a new star being born. The Silence Maker split apart in a chain reaction that consumed everything within 10,000 kilometers. Debris scattered across the system, and with it, the Talvori's last hope of destroying Earth in secret. Lieutenant Han Ji-won felt the shockwave hit her ship. Warning lights flashed everywhere. Systems failed. Her cockpit filled with smoke. "Shadow 1 is hit," she reported. "Systems failing. I am going down." The last thing she saw before darkness took her was the blue dot of Earth, still shining in the distant sky. 6 months later, General No Hae-jin stood before the Galactic Coalition Assembly. Hundreds of species watched as the old human woman approached the speaking platform. Behind her, a delegation of humans waited in formal uniforms. The Talvori seats were empty. Their government had collapsed after the truth became known. Their leaders faced war crimes trials. Their species struggled to rebuild its reputation. 200 years ago, General No began. Humanity went silent. We did this because we had learned that the galaxy was not safe. We had learned that trust was a weapon that others could use against us. She looked around the vast chamber at the countless alien faces watching her. Today, we choose to speak again. Not because we have forgotten the past, but because we have met species who stood with us against tyranny. We have seen that not all the galaxy shares the Talvori's cruelty. Fleet Commander Tiff Morvain nodded from the Crethry section. Commander Reth Salavis watched through a viewer from wherever his soul now rested. "Earth will join the coalition again," General No announced. "But we do so as equals. We do so with our own terms. And we do so with a warning." Her old eyes grew hard as steel. "Earth was silent because we were listening. We heard your lies. We heard your plans. And now you will hear us. If any species ever attacks Earth again, if anyone threatens our children or our home, they will learn what we learned 2 centuries ago." She leaned forward. "Humanity does not forget. And humanity does not forgive those who show no mercy." The chamber was silent. Then, slowly, applause began. It grew until it filled the vast space with sound. Earth was part of the galaxy once more. 3 days later, on Earth, medic Han Jun-seo stood at a hospital window. He watched a transport ship descend through the clouds. It carried wounded soldiers being returned from various recovery stations throughout the galaxy. The transport landed. Medical teams rushed forward. Stretchers emerged, carrying survivors of the strike mission Dot, and on one of those stretchers, wrapped in bandages but very much alive, lay Lieutenant Han Ji-1 Jun-seo Ran. He pushed through crowds of doctors and nurses. He reached her side just as she opened her eyes. "You promised," he said, tears running down his face. G1 smiled weakly. "I always keep my promises." She had been found in an escape pod, barely alive, by a Valori rescue ship. The enemy had saved her because humans had saved them. Mercy given had been returned dot above them. The sky was full of ships from 100 worlds. They came to trade, to learn, to meet the species that had hidden in silence for 200 years. Earth was silent no more. And the galaxy would never forget why.